And we're live now. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We are back,
Yeah, and just introducing ourselves, I'm Jen.
I'm Roselle.
and I'm Odi. And tonight we have a very exciting interview. We are very privileged and grateful that he gave his time to us. So we have uh, Siegfried Bacani from 7000 islands.
Yay! Here we go.
Welcome.
Welcome, Siggy.
Hello.
That's water.
Water.
I love the hat, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, it's the hat that you use, so I thought I'd put something on that's recognizable to people. So thanks for inviting me onto the show, Audie, Giselle, and Jen. I know that you guys have been reaching out for a while, so I haven't been avoiding business growing pains, which I'm sure we'll talk about this evening. So looking
No,
forward to it. Be
you've
gentle.
been you've been so busy with with all these
Hmm.
of your liquor and the beer, so we totally understand. So,
Yeah, you're a
yeah.
busy man.
Yeah, so thank you for your time, Sigi. So before we go ahead with our with a lot of our questions, just introduce yourself, please.
Sure. So my name is Siegfried Bacani, and so my name is Christian name is German. But people call me Siggy, and some people tell me my family name is Italian, but I'm 100% Filipino. Born to Kapampangan parents in the Philippines, so around Mount Pinatubo. My dad's side was in Pampanga on one side of the volcano, and then on the other side was in Concepcion, Tarlac, the southern speaking part um, of Tarlac, and we emigrated here in 1987, shortly after People Power Revolution. I think that anniversary was on quite recently, so it's quite a vivid memory leaving the Philippines around that time and having memories of protests and being on the streets while these protests are happening. And coming here in 1987 into 88, and it was bicentenary. So Australia was celebrating their first Australia Day, which was quite interesting. So it was a really big transition. And I've since been lucky enough to grow up here with an Australian passport, living in a Filipino household, and having the luxury to study and travel around the world.
Oh, wow. You did mention that you used to live in Melbourne before. So when did you actually move to Sydney?
I did. And so so we're going that deep. Yeah. Okay. So I lived in Melbourne. Where you guys are at. So I understand the how the coffee is great in Melbourne and how it's all about layering and going black. And I really love my live music, so I spent plenty of time. So I lived in Melbourne sort of pre 2010, and then for a watch company back then, this watch group. They'd had Vado, Longines, Tissot, Omega, Blancpain, Guacute, very much luxury. And I also spent some time with a chocolate company. So I actually was transferred over by Lindt and Sprungly Chocolates from the Sydney office. My first job, my first career in sales and marketing, and I actually didn't know who I was working for when I told my mum Lindt, but she obviously knew what the chocolate was, so she was wrapped, and she was very sad when I left after they transferred me to Melbourne. But I yeah, I did spend some time in Melbourne and going to the races and when and that was probably before I just went off to go to London. So I was living in London for a little bit, and I went there during the Asian financial crisis,
Oh,
and that was
wow.
kind of weird because most of my friends had gone. gone to London in their 20s, and I was going there in my 30s, and I honestly thought I was going to work in a pub. But I was lucky enough to land a job with Bacardi Brown Forman, which is a fancy word for Bacardi and Jack Daniels in London. And I was,
Ooh.
they had this liqueur, Drambuie, which is like a Scottish whiskey honey heather liqueur, and it was one of 12 alcohols or products within the portfolio. You know, right at the top was Bacardi and Jack. And after I cut my teeth there, knocking on doors, um, pounding the pavement, and working on the smallest, I guess, brand, I was promoted into the Daniels team. So from being on my own to being in a team of 12 into the second biggest alcohol for American whiskey in London was quite amazing. So that was probably my first entry into professional alcohol making or sales and distribution world. And then I was meant to go to New York afterwards. So after you spend some time in London, most Aussies they want to go to Germany, Paris, New York. I wanted to go to New York, and then after I was meant to go to New York and had my friend Nino and Joe's wedding. Lost my passport in the
Oh,
Philippines because all of my identification was British for the past few years. I couldn't prove who I was, so I was actually stuck in the Philippines as an adult, and I learned Tagalog, and I'm still learning to this day because Kapampangan is my first language.
oh
Mm.
Tagalog,
wow. So you speak Kapampangan fluently. Oh.
a little bit, yeah, mostly around described food. So
Ah.
I got stuck there, and then my parents I had to go back to Sydney and try and prove who I was. I had to find a tito or a tita who was like a lawyer or a doctor to try and get my Australian passport renewed. But during that time, was actually I spent so much time working on alcohol in the UK. Started to look at the Philippines, and I'm like, why do they drink in this way? Like Aussies, I'm sure you've seen like Claudia Rosell Jen. We drink fast,
Mm.
right? Filipinos, they drink pretty fast, right? So
Mm.
they go out, it's 11, they're still up at 2, whereas we're trying to hammer the drinks. And so it's all of these small nuances. And I spent some time traveling around during festival seasons. I went to Panagbengan in Baguio. I went to Sinulog in Cebu. You know, on a ferry, the kind of ferry that you and I think, the one with the milk. And the milk crate, and you're sleeping on someone's back, like on a
Oh
bucket,
yeah.
and going on top of the jeep in Sagara. And then when I came back and I was really disappointed, so I decided not to go to New York, and I ended up getting a gig with LVMH or Moet Hennessy. So that's the MH LVMH is Moet Hennessy, and it's the wine and spirits division. And he either have Shandon, obviously in Greenpoint in Yarra Valley. We also have Cape Mentella in WA in Margaret River, as well as
Mm.
Cloudy Bay in New Zealand. And I fell further into spirits, wine, alcohol, and that's sort of my journey evolved to getting higher into the corporate ladder and becoming less and less satisfied about what I was doing. And when my son, my mother is sort of next door, he's working out there. When he was born and he was like, um, I really couldn't look at him and say, follow your dreams. So I, took that first, first step is really hard, Jen. Like you think about it, you're never really ready, but then you kind of just have to. It's not really a playbook, and you have to convince to take that first step. And my original goal was just to have a bar, a wine bar with Filipino tapas. Still do because I love ethos, inspired by San Sebastian. But saw an opportunity for first the Southeast Asian spirits, particularly from the Philippines, because our craft is really good. And at the same time, sending wine over from here in Australia to the Philippines as well. So hopefully that's giving you a Macca's version of my mini journey.
So how did so what's 7,000 islands?
Well,
Can
it's
you tell
the
us
name.
more about that?
Sorry, Roselle.
Can you just tell us more about that? The name behind it, the product behind that.
Yeah. Look, I really wanted to celebrate something that uh, identifies both Australia and the Philippines, and so when we came up with the name 7,000 Islands, it was really around celebrating what we have in common. So Philippines has 7,641 islands, I think at last count, and Australia has over 7,000 islands too. So we've got 8,222. Not that it's a competition, but Australia just has one big continent and then many small islands. But the use of the geography is really important in terms of talking about provenance or a sense of place, because where the spirits and the beer come from, the Philippines, which is mostly volcanic soil or terroir, it really defines the taste that go into the product. And similarly here in Australia, our soil isn't volcanic. It's mostly alluvial soil, loam, and red clay, which they call terra rossa, and that really expresses itself in the wine. So it was a really easy choice to come up with 7,000 islands, and because it's a good leeway to tell the story about how I identify both as being Australian as well as Filipino, as well as talk about wine. Because when you talk about wine spirits, you inevitably have to talk about where it comes from. So the magic of champagne and Jack Daniels is always about telling about where it comes from. And so they drink the story first, and that makes the story and the drink taste even better after they drink it. So that's the story, Roselle, 7,000 Islands. And look, I do not own the word 7,000 Islands. It's interesting because it is a phrase that gets used more often outside of the Philippines. You don't find people within the Philippines saying, "Oh, we're from the 7,000 islands," but as a geographical sort of marker for foreigners, it's quite easy to identify because they can't fathom that many islands, right? So uh, it's something that we're just using to communicate to talk about the beverages. So I think
Yeah.
there's a very famous author who has a book called 7,000 Islands, Yazzie, and then there's a bunch of others as well. And it's all about just celebrating together. If it allows us to tell our story, why not? Yeah.
Very rare that I haven't really met any Filipinos who's into this business. So I think you're the only one so far that I know. um,
In Australia, in the Philippines, or both?
and both.
Both.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
There's not many of us here in Australia. I can think of a couple. Australian Asians are quite rare in alcohol industry because
yeah,
it's a little bit. I wouldn't say it's clubby. It's more to do with, so wine, say for example, it's more to do with geography. So most wineries are away from an urban center.
mhm.
So you wouldn't find many Filipinos migrating or living in a regional area. And then on the spirit side, it's quite competitive. And you're right, Jen. Like I never had any Filipino, let alone Asian Australian role models to look up to. But it's because race isn't really, well, I never personally felt it as a barrier or a thing. And sometimes I forget my color, that I'm light brown apparently. And I was reminded in London. So I talk like this. I'm emailing my English colleagues from Wales and Scotland. And then I meet them like in Auchentoshan at the distillery in Glasgow. And in comes this short Asian guy. So it's very confusing for them. Like,
Mhm.
you're Siggy? Like, the name confuses them. The way I talk confuses them. The way that I look confuses them. So I think
Mhm.
for us, sometimes we we do well to really integrate, and I definitely forget my color sometimes. But it's nice to be able to talk to people like yourselves who definitely see that, so that we can inspire the next generation of Pinoy entrepreneurs to come up. It'd be great to put on a wine scholarship to
Yes.
get someone to learn how to do winemaking, and hopefully they come from Melbourne, and really just sort of explore our cuisine through wine, which is one of my primary objectives, which is exploring the tropical gastronomy of the Philippines um, with Australian wine and vice versa. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it is interesting. There's not many.
Yeah. So take us back. How did it all started? What sparked the idea of 7,000 islands?
The idea, it was always there. Like, do I want to make my own beer? Yes. Um, we're bringing in someone else's craft beer in Kanto Brewery, and they're the best at it. Do I want to make my own gin and rum? 100%. But my passion is in wine. Like, it's such a foreign concept to me. I had my first wine. I always remember it. It was a Annie's Lane South Australian Riesling, and I was working in this venue called the Roxy. I was a hospitality waiter slash cocktail bartender, and I could do mixed drinks. I went to cocktail school, but and we kind of drank, but my dad's not a big drinker, and my mum as well, not really a drinker. And one of the fascinating things in terms of our culture is Filipinos either eat food, and they either drink water before or after, mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and not during the meal. So this idea of pairing didn't really exist. So then when I tried my first wine, because I needed to learn the wine to be able to sell the wine, it was so different. I'm not sure if you recall having your first Riesling, but it's this concept of dry, which is not the opposite of sweet, but the absence of sweetness. So kind of like a beer. And it had these appley, lemony kind of pear, stone fruit kind of notes, and it was Moorish, so it left a really nice tingle on my mouth, and I wanted to try more. And so, I fell in love with wine there, and I fell in love with wine even deeper when I started working for Moet Hennessy. So Moet Hennessy makes Moet and Chandon, Dom Perignon, Veuve Clicquot. I was lucky enough to go to Champagne, to Rams, where Veuve Clicquot is made, and Moet and Chandon, where Epinay is made, in Epinay, sorry. And then getting some more training and time in the vineyard here in Australia, in Shandong, down in Greenpoint, really sort of made me decide that, yeah, this is what I want to do, but I want to do it with the lens of pairing it with Filipino food. Because when we go to wine school, like either in France or here in Australia, and the training school is called WSET, they always give you like English pairings, so red wine and steak. Or a classic pairing is like Riesling with lechon, or to them it's a pig, because they think of the pig and then they think of apple, and there's apple notes in the wine, and they mostly cook their pig glazed with apple. And it's so interesting. And when you get a bunch of like sort of Asian or Oriental wine trained people, we always think red wine, like I think Pinot Noir, because lechon has like this nice crackly, spicy, peppery from the soy sauce, from the star anise. So you kind of want to get the earthiness out of the umami notes or the smoky notes of the lechon. So why not a red wine, but not Shiraz, but go Pinot Noir because it's cold. So it's really like I wanted to really explore that, and I have access to, given my background with Moet Hennessy, to vineyards, to making wine. So we've got some high end wine that comes from Yarra Valley from a single vineyard in the sub-region of Gruyere, and then also more accessible wine which is for every consumer within the Philippines, because there's so many times I've been to the Philippines and I was like, this is terrible. There's a saying in French which is, "Give me your best, cheapest wine." That's what it feels like sometimes when I'm in Philippines or Fiji or Bali or Thailand, where they have really awful wine, and you buy it because it's the only thing that around. So I want to change that, and I also want to explore our cuisine through wine, through the perspective of pairing with drink, because it's so much more interesting. I love Filipino food. It's the food of my culture. It's my food pantry. It's my food library. And it's such a shame that when I'm with my Western colleagues, they're very Western in the way that they think about pairing it. And our food is it's like a balance of sour, bitter, and umami. So our bitter reference is actually only second to the Koreans. So we have like a lot of bitter food like ampalaya. So Aussies don't have that, and they don't have much umami food, which is depth of flavor. So like adobo is deep, sinigang is deep, and when you're pairing it with a wine, it's very it's like a journey. Whereas if you have red wine and steak, it's very one dimensional. It's kind of like how to describe Western food versus Filipino food. So that's sort of it always hung around there, Jen. And then when I had a chance to actually, think beyond the bar, think beyond that, I was like, yeah, I'll make my wine. People always commented that I can describe food really well. And, they like my pairings and my suggestions. And, found the site, invested into a vineyard, and started growing. And look, we think in seasons, in years, in harvest. So harvest is actually happening right now. I was there last week, down at Gruyere, picking grapes. So it's the most exciting time. I'll be back down there this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as well as going to your Pinoy entrepreneur event. So hopefully I don't get up too early or have a bit of rest. But it's that's sort of how it started, and then just trying to build sales, marketing, and distribution for wine in the Philippines. And because of the people that I'm dealing with over there, they're like, "Oh, why don't you take my product to your country?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I'm Filipino. I understand the flavor. I'm Western in the way that I think. I've been trained in France and in the UK as well when it comes to spirits, so I can talk their language. And there is a thirst for Southeast Asian spirits. There is a thirst for Filipino craftsmanship. Tequila came from the Philippines. I'll tell you more about that story later. But like we should be proud in that. Probably all of us have a uncle or auntie, probably an uncle that knows how to distill lambanog, which is like unusual, right? But there's that craftsmanship is centuries deep in the Philippines. It's just that they're not as celebrated as much as the Mexicans happen to be right next to America, and they've got this very connoisseur market that can see craft and say, yeah, that's good. But that craftsmanship and that knowledge actually came from the Filipinos that hopped on the boat a few centuries ago. So, yeah, so I'm talking too much. So let's.
No, we're learning a lot. I'm pretty sure these
Yeah.
boys loves history, so they're enjoying this. Thank you.
It's a very good history lesson. So thanks for sharing all the knowledge with us. Really
And yeah,
appreciate it.
I love it's if I could, and part of the reason why I really like this hobby, so if I could just talk about drinking or making drinks, I think I'm halfway there. I have been spending a bit of time with food historians in the Philippines every trip. So last time I was with the absolute giant, Felice Star Maria, and she's been helping me to sort of provide some provenance or credibility to some of these stories, and understanding if they're true or not, or what is sort of like a bit of an embellishment or what is actually fact. And it's good to see Philippines' role within that, and how it's developed. So one thing she told me, and there's actually a movie about it. So when Manila and Madrid were connected, Filipinos actually influenced San Sebastian. So black ink pasta didn't exist until the trade with Manila. So that kind of squeezing the ink out of the squid came from the Filipinos, and then the San Sebastian, the Basque people said this is amazing because they're a hub. Obviously, they're a port, and so there's many of these wonderful little stories of our culture influencing the rest of the world that we just need to share more and celebrate and talk about. You know,
How come we don't get
sorry.
recognition? It's just amazes me how we don't get the recognition by you telling us about all the history, about our contribution, in history.
Plenty. We just have to keep talking about it. Keep talking about it. Keep sharing. Keep
Mm.
celebrating each other. I think that's the only way. Uh, so but I'd obviously, I'm keen as chips to see some of my colleagues in or peers in the wine, alcohol, and spirits industry in the USA, because by virtue of the fact that there's so much more of them, a lot more of them have actually sort of entered into that industry. Most of them seem to be sommeliers. A couple seem to be manufacturers, but it's all about just having a community and a peer group to be able to share stories with. Because as you know, Jen and Audie, when you're owning a business or running sort of a going concern, it can be quite lonely sometimes about whether or not what you're doing is the right thing. You have a lot of people, and I'll use my parents as an example. They're amazing. My non-entrepreneurial parents give the best advice, the most well-meaning advice, and it comes from a good place, but it also comes from a place of not knowing as well. So I really need to, in terms of the talking with others, to say, have you experienced this before? How have you approached this? And sort of not in a non-technical way, because it can be quite lonely
Yeah.
running a business sometimes, because you really care about it and you can't stop thinking about it. And maybe sometimes that side isn't spoken of enough. And look, right now we're going through tons of growing pains. So and Jen's been a victim of it. She'll send me a text, an email, a WhatsApp, and I don't respond. I just don't have enough time to sit down and focus, because within business, where your energy, uh, where you look, where your focus is where the business grows. So kind
Mm.
of like when I'm, snowboarding or surfing, where I look is where the business goes. And so sometimes I just have to be quite blinkers on and really just focus on right now for sales and distribution nationally for 7,000 islands. So we've done a great job of breaking into the mainstream. So Celebrations is a huge independent retail banner. We're in Crown, Sydney, and soon Crown, Melbourne. Uh,
Wow.
Otlo, which is a green banner.
Congratulations. Uh,
Congratulations, Siggy.
Thank you. And look, it's more in terms of just there's a thirst for it. They want something new. It's interesting, and we should continue to do that. Keep introducing our cuisine, which is going through its renaissance or start of its renaissance at the moment. But when I'm talking to the food guys, they I selfishly always think they're kind of like having a conversation with themselves, because they think culinary just means food.
Mm.
Actually, cuisine means food and drink. But
Mhm.
because there's not many of us in the industry, we're kind of just a little voice. So we just have to keep sharing, telling the story, and getting people on the ride. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I just added Ace on the stream. He's just driving back
Hello.
home. Ace is
Hi,
Oldie's brother.
hope you don't mind. Yeah, so I've been listening and learning a lot as well. So uh, yeah, so um, I like the name. It's very catchy and very inclusive. And
Thank
it's
you.
like what you said. Like it could it's like a few words to describe everyone, and also at the same time while we're in Australia, right? So it covers both countries.
It
Um,
does. Yeah.
yeah,
And whether or
very
not we
inclusive.
like it, we're Australian, and we're Filipino as well. So I think we should definitely celebrate that. Um, yeah. So thank you, Ace. That's really comforting. And again, I do not own the name. It's more around just using the name as a vehicle to tell our story
Mm,
together. Yeah, I think it's wonderful that. And so another good story. So the Southern Filipinos in modern day Sabah and Mindanao used to travel all the way down to Arnhem Land and trade with the Aboriginals in the Northern Territory
mm, that
way back
far, yeah.
when. Yeah, and that's our culture. That's amazing. If you look it up, it's in Aboriginal songline and rock art. It's been recorded, and it's also in Filipino history as well. So I think it's so great that we would come here and not try and conquer the country. Instead, we just want to trade and
Mm.
share. Um, well, hopefully, as you're not, are you holding the steering wheel, or
It's driving. I have
or
to
you got
hold
the
it.
driver?
He's
But yeah, so
holding.
I, I was amazed with what you said. So there's few problems that we had in our culture, right? So one thing is we don't talk about it. We don't celebrate like other countries does, right? So that's why we don't get recognition of what we have invented. Um, I was reminded of one of the jokes like fluorescent love, like Filipinos are
Yeah,
probably not true, but what you said about the tequila, I was amazed, and you verified it. So you just don't just share it, you um, learn the history behind it,
yeah.
and just
My Lolo
as an
always used to tell me that.
entrepreneur, what you have done is really good.
Look, and building on what you're saying, like my Lolo always used to tell me that story of how Filipinos invented the fluorescent lamp. And as a kid, when you're like, I think at one point I wanted to be an engineer. That's really inspiring. And then so if I can explain Lambanog, which
Mm.
before Lambanog
Fermentation, yeah.
is is tuba. Uh, so
What's the difference to buy in Lambanog?
okay, so there's an extra process of distillation with Lambanog, whereas tuba is just the sap from the coconut flour or spadix fermenting. Okay, I probably oversimplified that. So um,
Yep.
to explain it in a different way, tequila is made from agave, which is a cactus. And when the Filipinos hopped off the boat, they couldn't find any coconut palm trees, right? So lambanog and tuba is made from the sap or the nectar of cocoa palm flower before it turns into a cocoa nut. And
Mm.
how they traced through anthropology how Mexico, Manila, and Taiwan is connected. So if actually you could say that the Taiwanese came up with it. So in terms of Austronesian migration, Filipinos came from Taiwan, went down through the Philippines, down into Indo, and then through the Pacific. So that's all of the Austronesian languages. But the way that the Mexicans distill is 100% the same design, which in Mexico they call a Filipino still. In Western, most stills are called alembic, so that's the Arabic gooseneck. The Filipino still or pugun is like a square oven, but our oven design or distilling design is also the same as the Taiwanese. So when the Mexicans make agave, it's 100% Mexican tequila. When we make ours from cocoa palm flour, it's 100% Lambanog. And when the Taiwanese make their version, it's 100% Taiwanese. So it's not the fact that we're saying we made tequila. It's actually no. You can trace it. Just like Japanese whiskey, the Japanese openly acknowledge that they received their transfer of knowledge from the Scottish. They actually
Oh, wow.
celebrate. We do know how to make Scotch whiskey, but the moment they started making it in Japan, it's Japanese whiskey, and isn't that amazing, right? So when I see Lumbernog and they have to go 30 meters into the air, like these very tall trees, and
Mm.
then they have to cut the spadix, and the yield is like saffron. So konti lang, just a little bit. They have to do that over 30 days.
Wow.
That's craftsmanship. That is so
A lot of
patient.
work.
You
And then
cannot.
Lambatag is so cheap.
Sorry,
That should be
Lambatag
more expensive. Yeah.
it's
It's similar
100%
to
expensive.
cinnamon. Sorry, vanilla, right? Similar to vanilla. How they extract vanilla.
Yeah, and so for when I see Lumbernog, I'm like, yeah, I'd pay good money for that. That's craftsmanship, right? I see it as for what it is, right? When the yield is like saffron, when the effort's like, and
Is
in
that
terms,
gonna be in your lineup? Lambanog?
it is, yeah. We've got from Lacan, from Lipa, Batangas, from Quezon, uh, from the southern part. Amazing, and look, they're export ready. There's a lot of great wines and spirits in the Philippines, but not many are export ready or at a global standard. So, and actually, interesting, one of the things I learned in the Philippines is that they use the word wine to describe everything. Whereas here in Australia, wine is separate from spirits, is separate from beer. So there's
Yeah.
like ube liqueur wine behind me, or there's like coconut wine, or there's like Lambanog wine. So that was something I needed to wrap my head around. But our distilling culture in the Philippines is older. Our winemaking culture is older
Yeah.
in Australia than France. So don't let them
Mm.
think that the French is superior. They're just better at telling their story. And that's what we need to do, is
Yeah.
continue to tell the story and get people hooked into it because it's good. And that you should pay good money for it too. Because
Yeah.
it's good craftsmanship.
So your first product is the wine, is that right, Siggy?
Yes, yeah. Did I give you some? No, I
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah, you did. We actually saw it from Jason last year.
The
Or
OPM.
during the first expo, I think. And we were
Yeah.
so amazed that it was made by, Filipino. So can you
Was that
tell
the
us
one in
how did you
Tagalog?
find sorry?
Was that the one in Tagalog?
Yes. Yes. Oh,
Okay,
but
yeah.
what,
So,
what
you want me to tell you about that one?
yeah, how did you find like a winery to make your wine?
Okay,
And
yeah.
what
That's
was the
right.
key
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah.
process?
Well, I mean, I was lucky I have contacts from when I worked for Moet and Shandon in Margaret River, and also here down in Melbourne in Shandon in Greenpoint. So when you're kind of in the industry, you know who to talk to. Um, it was around COVID, so it would have been 2019, and at the height of COVID, and sort of a great time to start a company, even though it was a terrible time for all of us. I we I enrolled myself in a Master of Australia wine course, virtual, obviously, which I've always wanted to do in person. And week one, me and my fiance, we tried 13 different Shiraz from the 52 wine regions of Australia. Um, it was hectic. It was amazing. It was different. So
I
saying
should
that,
enroll in this course.
yeah, you should. I'll send you the link. So saying that all Shiraz from the 52 wine regions of Australia is about as false as saying all adobo from the 82 provinces of the Philippines is the same. It is not. There is
Yep.
regionalism in there. There is an expression of soil. And so I got to try. I mean, I've drunk a lot of wine in my job, but we really honed down into the main Australian varieties. So the Shirazes, the Chardonnays, the Sauvignon Blancs, the Pinot Noirs, which I love, and it's absolutely criminal that we don't drink more Pinot Noir because it's perfect with Filipino food. And then from different regions. So my favorite Shiraz was actually from Canberra. And people think of Canberra as Parliament, but think of Canberra as actually Mount Kosciuszko, high altitude like Baguio. And then my other favorite Shiraz would have been from McLaren Vale, which is sort of similar to Mornington Peninsula, where it's like coastal with a beach. So it has kind of like a similar kind of expression as Bordeaux. And I didn't tend to like any of the South Australian ones because they were quite dry. Because my lens was every time we tried wine, we were eating it with Filipino food. So actually, there was this one, and we were living in Newcastle at the time. All of the Filo chefs came and cooked their version of adobo. So I said, okay, you guys cook your adobo from your region, and I'll match it with a red and white wine, which I think will work. And so we were, trial and error. Like there's obviously you can read a book, you can do it by experience, or you can actually just do it. That's called testing. That's called innovation. That's called trying. And so it was the first time I was introduced to humba, which is a
Mm.
Mm.
very different adobo to pampanga. Like they have, I either of you from Cebuano or Visayan? Like there's star anise in it. There's pineapple. I think he used
Jackfruit.
jackfruit. Yeah, banana blossom, black bean, right? And so to say that that adobo is the same as Tagalog adobo is completely false. And so,
Yep.
as to your question, we're just trying the perfect match. And so, actually, there's a perfect match for humba, which for me is Pinot Noir from a cool climate region, uh, preferably coastal. It matches really well because with the humba, you've got the black bean and you've got the earthiness of the banana blossom, and the Pinot Noir really sort of brings out the umami flavors. Versus if you were having sort of like a Tagalog adobo, you're better off with sort of like a Margaret River Shiraz because that pepperiness really comes out, and it's all about finding that match. So it was probably the best time for us during COVID, just every month. And there was lockdowns, so bawal diba to meet up sometimes, but we would like secret club meeting, and they would come and cook their sinigang, their version of sinigang, and there's many different souring agents, and I really got to explore sour. And so one of our uh, white wine, which is the OPM Chardonnay, is not an oaky, buttery Chardonnay. It's actually on the left-hand side, which is citrusy, fresh, linear, parang calamansi. So if you have this parang calamansi like Chardonnay with a sinigang from the Philippines, it's like dancing on your tongue. It's yum. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's like
Very
squeezing
different.
calamansi in it when you're having the wine. And so
Yeah.
we did that exploration, and that's how we came up with the wines. And so I identified the regions. I contacted the different owners of the benchmark wines, and just approached them and talked to them and say, hey, I want to make wine for my country. I want to make wine for my palate. And invested into their vineyard because at the end of the day they're like my grandparents, right? On both sides, they're
Uh,
growers, they're just farmers, right? It's just that their product is romantic, but they probably thought I was crazy. Who is this fellow Aussie guy who used to work for Moe and now wants to send wine to the Philippines? Because but for me it's my passion, that
Yeah.
exploration of the intersection of food and wine. And then so for the single vineyard vintage, that's quite specific. I won't get too technical, but each year kind of changes. And then we also have your everyday or accessible wine, which is more like a blend or a recipe, like a food recipe.
And you mentioned connections, Siggy. How important is connections in this industry?
Everything. So it's this kind of in my head. There's um, three things that you need to enter alcohol. The first one is experience or expertise, which is what everyone values the most, and that's the hardest to get because you need to put time in. The second most valuable is connection or networking, or industry friends and peers. That one you can earn if you've got the right personality. They like you, you fit in. It's not really about fitting in, but if you're not a nice person, they're going to turn you away straight away. They get hit up so many times. That's the second most important, and the last one is, let's just say, bank balance or investment. But for winemakers and for people in alcohol, uh, we the joke is, if you want a small fortune in wine, you start off with a big one, lose half of it, and you end up with a small one. So most of us that are in alcohol, we do it because we love it, not because we'll make a ton of money. So people with cash, we tend to ignore them. They're not really in it for the right reasons. So I think like it first, and then make the connections, reach out, speak to you. If you're at a winery, if you like it, talk to them, see if they entertain you. I think they'll probably find it curious if who's this Filipino person talking to them about making wine, because it's hard. Last year when I was there at Gruyere, the tractor broke down, and we call it a bin, which is not really a bin. It's more like a tonnage square thing where we're going to put the grapes in after we pick it. We The tractor broke, but we needed to deliver it to the storage place, and so it's 7 o'clock at night, and I'm having to pick up the bulk grape and then put it on top of the bin, on top of the track. That's farming. That reminds me of my childhood in the Philippines with rice. It really is hard. It's the romantic part, which I think people focus on, and like most businesses, they don't see the hard work.
Mm.
Sometimes they just see the success. So I don't know what it's like for you guys in your industries, but yeah, it's nice to talk about uh, the successful part or the fun part. And right now, the vineyard or harvest is a really amazing time to be at Yarra Valley. So if you want, come down next weekend, have a look. Uh,
We might.
your hands dirty if you want to bring your gum boots. I'll make it work.
Wow,
Uh,
that'd be fun.
if you really
It's
want.
like a tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I'll apply for work experience.
so how many wines do you have now in your um portfolio?
18.
Like
Are we talking about
18.
Australian wines? 18. That's a lot of
Anything,
wine.
like even the ones you export,
18.
18. And
18.
then my
So
next
let's
question
continue the
is,
spirit.
so we've been talking about, matching it with different Filipino dishes, right? Have you
Yes.
mastered which one is perfect match for what?
Yes. For which one?
Like for example, as a Filipino dish, is there like maybe not master is not the right word. Maybe have you have any suggestion, like every time
Favorite?
a customer comes to you, what
No,
would
right. Yeah.
you know
Easy. Yeah. 100%.
you've done it.
Easy. Yeah. I
So
think
it's
with
that's how you market your wine, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And look, I have these conversations with Audie all the time. So he's given me for Cafe Cucina, they've taken on the craft beers. But at the same time, I'm looking at their menu and I'm pairing every single one with a wine. And so
That's great.
if we could talk about the commercial part of that, if your restaurant is making $1,000 a week, and I'm just making up numbers, you could be easily making 1,400. So an additional
Adding
400
wines,
just by pairing it with a
yep,
wine and
of
attracting an Aussie
course.
consumer. So one of the super easy ones that you can do is, so what's the number one food like that Aussies like? Lechon, right? So just go easy. Shiraz, done. Any region, you don't really even have to think about. If you don't want to think about it too much, just get something from Adelaide. done, right? Pork with red wine, chilled from the fridge, an easy one. If it was one of my white peas, sommeliers, they'd probably go Riesling, like lechon with Riesling, because they want to get the apple notes out. But no, that's an
Yep.
easy one. Um, Another one that I really love is arroz caldo
Yep.
with Chardonnay. Sarap.
Wow. Really?
Wow.
For breakfast.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It's yum.
Oh,
Get a really nice arroz caldo.
What
Um,
what will what will go well with the tapsilog?
Tapsilog,
Yeah,
champagne or
champagne.
sparkling. Yeah,
Okay.
bubbly. Go
See,
bubbly.
there you go.
Something sweet.
For
So
breakfast, champagne breakfast, right?
Yeah.
yeah, one of these what's their names? The is it Descanso? I think Descanso Cafe in Glebe in Sydney. They were doing a high tea
Mm,
breakfast. And
Mhm.
so, look, when I'm in Philippines for business or for pleasure, one of my favorites is breakfast because diba dito, it's backwards. They have a small breakfast and they have a big dinner. I
yeah.
like to have a big breakfast. I got
Yep.
tapsilog, lonsilog, get the tapa, but with the garlic rice, which is umami, and then the protein, which is barbecue and smoky, and then you have a bit of mango.
Mm,
Have it with sparkling. Yum.
I'm
It
getting hungry.
Yeah, just do it.
Oh.
Nice little way to wake up. It cleanses the palate. It really plays well with the barbecue
Extracts.
stick.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the mango. If you've got a really nice sparkling, you can pull out some mango notes. That's so easy to do for restaurateurs. If you're Filipino, just add a drink. Add a drink. Sell more, make more money. I want you to make more money. And so the usual challenges, if you don't mind, some of
Almusal.
the so let's just call in my universe. I have my smart. Actually, I won't use the word smart. I have my open-minded Filipino brothers and sisters, titos and
Yep.
titas, that can see the opportunity with the
Yep.
white Aussie um, consumers, customers, right? Um, and then I have the sort of maybe more fixed mindset. They kind of just want to do something that they're comfortable with, but step out of your comfort zone, offer drink, make more money. It makes
Mm,
and celebrate our culture whilst you're doing it, and make it easier for the Aussies to come into your bar because you know
exactly.
they're always going to want to drink. You know,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
probably the best way that I can help here in the domestic market. And we're trying to do the same over there in the Philippines as well, because most of the time it's beer, which is
Yeah.
Mm,
which is fine. I like beer too, but it's so much more
yeah.
interesting when you can experience flavor. And as a business owner, whether here or in the Philippines, when you can charge more versus a beer, which San Miguel would probably be what here in Australia, maybe 6, 8, $10.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm,
Charge a glass of wine, 12, 14, 16. If you're a fancy restaurant, probably 18.
more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you have to do is you just have to pour it.
Yep.
Just pour it. That's it. And get a
Cheap.
license. That's it. And don't be the ay mahal, like the ay mahal crowd. The usual ones. It's expensive. Yeah, but you'll make it back in a month. It's sobrang mahirap. Yeah, but your life will be so much easier if you make more money.
Yeah.
It's
Correct. Yeah.
mahal. And I'm like, okay, you're too fixed. Let me just work with someone like Audie and Jen who really see the vision, right?
Mm,
And the future of expanding their offer. And they're in a predominantly Aussie community in eastern suburbs in Camberwell, and they're killing it, right? So they not just with wine but also with beer. Uh, it's just so much more enjoyable. Like I love filler food, I also like drinking, but when I have them together, match. You can name me as any Filipino food, I'll match it. I'll match it with a wine beer. Maybe off camera we can have a we can have a
Yes.
yeah, that'll be fun.
We should plan an event soon. So Sige, you do your ube liquor and the beers in the Philippines, right? And then you import it here.
Yes, so they're made by businesses within the Philippines, and I import their product and distribute it here. So
Yeah.
ube behind me, the purple one, is ube cream liqueur.
Mm-hmm.
It's made
Yep.
by Distilleria Barraco. The ube is from Bohol. It also has there we go, coconut husk from
Yeah.
Mindanao, uh,
Wow.
and sugarcane from Negros, and it
Like.
arrived last September. It's been received really well by the Australian community, and
Yeah.
right now I think I've convinced Audie to add it to their
Yes.
menu, put it on the put it on the cocktail list. But he's already doing halo halo, but like to
Who
Spike
can add
halo
it on
halo.
Halo Halo?
halo halo, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you would pour as an entrepreneur, like pour it in front of the customer and
Yeah.
give them a little bit extra and give it a theater and tell them about where it comes from. They'll take
Wow.
no rivers for it. And we're, I think Ube, you guys celebrated recently Melbourne Ube Festival. So congrats for flying the flag. I think it's really important just to keep that momentum going. And I think Audie might have are you out of Ube Lager from in Canada? We got
I got a
Ube.
couple left. This is one of the last ones.
The bestseller.
It really went that well in the first week
I
that
like
we
the
had it.
packaging.
Tell me a story about that. And was it hard to convince you to try the ube lager?
Not at all. It's as soon as I saw it, I'm drawn to it. I'm curious. I want to try it. And now I've learned about the pairing. It's gonna be so much more easier to sort of like convince people to enjoy the meal with it. So
Yeah,
like no, it's a win-win, definitely.
win-win. And that ube lager um, is amazing because it is real ube. And
Mm.
I was ube is not a color. It's a flavor. It's a texture. It means something to us Filipinos, and we need to continue to try and own it, right? This is one of those ones I'm really passionate about. Let's not make it like pandan, where it just becomes this green thing like matcha. Uh, Ube is different. There's different kinds of ubes from the Philippines, and we need to own it. And that ube um, is different in the lager beer from the ube that's used in the cream liqueur, which is from Aklan, right? So there's different kinds of ube, and I'm really encouraged. Or what Filipino food can you pair with ube liqueur? Ice cream, ube macapino ice cream. But look,
Wow.
to
Yeah.
answer, who was the question from?
That was from Elmer. He's from
Oh,
the um, Global Entrepreneurs Network. So,
okay, yeah, plenty. Look, to take the bias out of being Filipino out of it, I describe ube to white people, our white brothers and sisters, as having a vanilla-like, subtly sweet flavor that's moreish, and then has a nutty aroma, which most of them can pick up, and it's very earthy in texture. So anything, if you think about flavor, anything like pandan, anything that has that kind of flesh or grit in terms of food, ube liqueur pairs with really, really well. I mean, it's easy to say that ube liqueur pairs with like coconut ice cream, right? It's very easy to say that. Then I challenge like Elma, and probably unfairly, but like Jen, what food would you pair with ube liqueur that's Western and white? Like that would be interesting to me, right? And so you have to think in their food library is quite different to ours. And I
mm,
met a guy in Canberra, a politician actually, Elma, and he was like, he's Aussie, and he was like, this tastes like my nan. My nan is like my grandma. This tastes like my nan's shortbread vanilla cake. And I've seen so many interpretations of that. So Ivana from Rosie Campbell's has been pairing the ube cream liqueur with like a cookie crumble kind of cake, and they
Mm.
pour it on top. So it's quite interesting to see their food library and their brain think, because they think quite differently to us in terms of what they've tried. So there's many different things that you can pair with ube liqueur from a
Creme
Philippine
brulee.
creme brulee. Yeah, perfect, right? I mean, super easy, right? Creme brulee. If you want to go American, so what's that in Tagalog? I forget what it's called now. Uh, what's creme brulee in Tagalog again?
Leche flan.
Veggie flan,
Flan?
right? So things like sans rival, anything that's nutty,
Oh, yeah.
that would work really well with. Um, but for me, just straight up ice cream. Hello, hello. Or
And
anything smoky.
someone wants to greet you, Siggy.
Oh, yes. Hello.
Chef Ben.
Well, Ben, yeah, thank you for that. I saw that and I was asking Audie about it. And the mango hazy IPA, absolutely amazing. And Ben, this is amazing because I'm a wine guy, right? Champagne is a designation in the world. Australians can't call their sparkling champagne.
That's right.
And the mango used in the mango hazy IPA from Encanto Brewery is from Guimaras. Audie, did I say that right?
Yes, Gimaras.
Guimaras. And it's the first region that has received a geographical indication in the world from the Philippines. Is mangoes, Carabao mangoes, or as my mum used to say, champagne mangoes, the best of all mango varieties from the island of Guimaras. That's an awesome story. The mangoes
Mhm.
here in Australia are what I say quite one-dimensional. I think we get, and no discredit to the Indian mango variety, but that's the one that we get, right? So it's a variation of that.
And what
Mango in the
IPA
Philippines.
means, Siggy? What is IPA? I thought it was hazy IPA. I didn't know it was IPA.
Hazy. So okay, this will become technical. So it's ale, which is the A. PA is pale ale. IPA is
Ah,
Indian pale ale, and it's a hazy or cloudy beer, which is a hazy IPA.
right. Okay, got it.
And that one is super popular with the white Australian community. They love hazies. It is amazing, Ben, that you have tried it with the chicken inasal and your breakdown of the flavor. I was wondering what you were thinking when you were uh, wanting to pair that. Because when I look at food and I look at drink, I look at them the same. When I see a drink, I actually see fruits, I see food, and I'm like, oh, I think that would match together. So it's like I'm making a plate in my mouth. And so it's great that chicken inasal is another one, would go well with the mango hazy IPA, and hopefully, Audwin, you put that on your menu. So how much is the chicken inasal on your menu?
22.
22. And then how much is the mango hazy IPA? More, I'm
On
not sure.
on the menu,
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be 29 or something like that.
yeah.
29 or 30, yeah.
Just an easy thing to do for food entrepreneurs is to have your food menu and then your drinks menu, and have a third paired menu, just by the fact that you're
Mm,
putting it in front of them and saying this, you've made the decision super easy for them. And Ben would know this, Audie would know this. Um, Roselle, you're nodding your head. It makes sense, right? Suggest sell, make it easy,
mhm.
because they look for direction. They don't know if we know Filipino food. They don't know Filipino food. We know beer. They know beer. So you're halfway there. They're gonna buy a beer. It's just like make the beer and the food match experience amazing for them. So Stockers in Melbourne, Cecile, we've got, if you're a business customer, we've got Steve's Liquor Warehouse. So I'll work with Amped to share those details afterwards. So they have a warehouse based in Dandenong. But as a consumer or a trade, you can purchase from celebrations in Highton, which is in
Mm,
Geelong, celebrations in St Kilda, celebrations in Richmond, and there's a very well-known independent bottle shop in Springvale South called Steve's Liquor as well. So where we've got you're able to get our craft beer and an ube cream liqueur from there. But if you wanted to have food, Cafe Casina in Camberwell is a good one in the city. Tita Ed at Ginger Olive, and then out west with Jed and with Dan, St. Berg's. So flying our flag, which is amazing.
great. And with importing these products from Philippines, Sige, was it hard for you? How long is the process?
Headache, yeah, really long. It is Australia is a hard
Yeah.
country to get into as a person and as a product as well. They even want to know whether or not the pallet if it's wood, then you have to have it fumigated,
Wow.
and not just fumigated, it has to have a specific stamp. Um,
Mm,
Working with the producer partners, and so with Ube Cream Liqueur, they were the first ones. Encanto have exported before, so they're in, I think, close to 10 different countries now. Um, the the hard part is actually in the Philippines. There's a lot of great product in the Philippines, but getting it from there into here is a very it's a logistical challenge. It's a paperwork challenge.
mm.
Uh, I remember meeting this amazing female couple. They have this brand called Danum. They make this amazing Big Nai wine from Baguio, and I really wanted to bring it here, but they're not ready. They're not export ready. They don't have the certificate of analysis. They can't produce the certificate of free sale. The consistency in production that's required to meet world standard, because it's a food stuff or it's something that you consume, and so there's a batch issue. Like if something is wrong with it, say for example, then we need to do a recall. The hard part is just working with your Filipino partner. And I think I was talking to my tita, and she's trying to get in I think some jewelry, and she's coming across these amazing craftspeople in Benguet and Mountain Province, and she's got kind of a similar challenge where it's about telling the Australian authorities what is this made out of? Is it animal? Is it plant? Is it wood? What's capiz? And so there's this huge
Yeah, sure.
education piece where you really have to like the product to bring it in. You really have to like your partner to work with them to get them up to an Australian standard, because after you get it in, so half of the drink cost is all tax. There's excise, there's duties, there's GST on the cost of good, and then there's GST on top of all of that. And then
Right.
when I sell it again, I have to charge GST again, which I then need to give to the government. So lucky we're not tobacco, but like alcohol is very much taxed, and it's kind of topical at the moment, particularly in beer. Like I think the beer excise is we are the third country in the world to reach. You know, was it $100 per? Our excise is just really high. So that then to your question, there is a lot of paperwork
A
to
lot of
do,
money.
a lot of money because it's to do capital. So I think maybe some of your audience will probably understand what capital means. So you kind of have to invest in the stock, and then it's being produced, and then it's in transit. And once it clears the gate, then you can actually sell it. So there's this huge gap where maybe for 3 to 4 months you are out of that capital. And if you invest into a 20-foot container, you're probably talking, 100, 200,000 either way, whether it's going here or there. So you really need to ensure that it's a sure bet, or you have distribution, or you have a home for it. So and there's so many different considerations when doing import export. I know that there's a lot of grocery importers right now. There's some interesting things like particularly around the food space, and so you'll see like a lot of Filipino food, like clover chips is my favorite clover like chip. It needs to have the Australian label, the mandatory labeling. It needs to define who it's imported by. You need to be nominated as the importer. This like it's like a never-ending checklist of things. But at the end of the day, like our goal is just to you know show off our flavors and make sure that the Australian public is aware of our craftsmanship. Do we have active distribution here in California? Short answer, Elmer, is yes. So, bit of trivia: Australia got our ube cream liqueur before California. Woohoo!
Wow.
I think you guys got your first container in December, but look, I'll work with Jen to pass on the distributor details in California. So I think from memory, there's about 20 million Filipinos alone just in
Wow.
California. So it's a big market over there. And actually, they had a version of ube lager as well. So you had a few Phil Ams um, doing that. But ube cream liqueur, no one else has cracked it right now. At the
Mm.
moment, still, and working with Destileria Baracco, it's amazing because these guys could have called it something else. They could have called it Purple Potion, Purple Rain, or some other crazy name, but they are, are so proud that it's ube. They just put it in the name, and you can say that's too simple, but I feel like that for me that's like, yeah, it's not purple, it's not yam, it's not taro, it's ube from the Philippines, right? That's something that we need to be definitely proud of. Yeah.
I think you have to visit California soon. You got some Filipino restaurant owners.
100%, Elma. Yeah, we'll go and visit over there. I think they're really into the natural wine there at the moment. So the stuff that's happening down at Sarai with Ross, and I think now the guys down at Escal in terms of that natural wine with Filipino food started or became popularized on the West Coast there. And I'll talk about that a little bit. So, have you guys ever heard the word natural wine versus unnatural wine or normal conventional wine?
No.
Natural wine is, in simple terms, I like to call it left-handed wine, right? So my formal training in France is that natural wine is faulty by definition. Not It's not incorrect, it's just by conventional standards. If it's a little bit cloudy like a beer, they want to get rid of that cloudiness, so they call that a fault. So natural wine is, there's lots of natural wine being made in the world, but why natural wine is really great with Filipino food is because it's fleshy, it's weighty, it's got texture, and so it really lends itself well to Filipino food. So as that might be another one to think about is just get a nice, probably gritty, natural Sauvignon Blanc, and you can almost literally pair it with any barbecue stick. That's quite a nice, easy one to do. But just about finding the right natural wine, I think. That's sort of the Californian, the Philam's contribution to food and wine pairing.
So what is not a natural wine?
A conventional wine. Yeah. So, look, I have a natural wine here. Yeah, I do actually. This is Vinden
Mm.
from Hunter Valley.
Yeah,
Uh,
looks
it's called the Head Case. It's an unconventional wine. It's made in the natural style. Um, what is not a natural wine is basically 90% of wines are natural, unnatural. Sorry. So I look, it's a, I won't call it a trend. It's a bit of it's very much championed by the people in Fitzroy, Footscray, where I used to live, and uh,
Yes. Very
yeah.
critical of drinks.
So that should give you an idea of who that is. I like natural wine, and when my friends at Christmas they go, oh, bring your favorite natural wine. I brought my favorite natural wine. They did not like it at all. Like it just lost on them. I think you have to. It's like whiskey, actually. So, do you drink whiskey as the um,
When someone offers me,
If
if someone
someone,
offers,
offers, right? So whiskey, Scottish whiskey, the usual journey is they start in the Highlands,
yeah,
uh, the Lowlands, Speyside, and then they might go to Islay or Isla or Islay, which is the super peaty, very thick, almost creamy kind of whiskey, like grass, because it's made from peat.
oh,
Right, that's not for everyone, and that's the same with natural wine. It's not for everyone. I think you have to have a certain kind of palate to appreciate that. Just stick with conventional wine, because there's a lot of great natural wine out there, but there's a lot of shit natural
that's
wine
right.
out there. So I don't cut them any favors for creating shit wine. I like
mm,
natural wine, and I hate shit natural wine. So it still needs to be good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Siggy and I was speaking earlier on, and I think he got a market coming up.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to meet you guys in Melbourne, because I was talking to Jen about this. We've got a market day at Easy Street, which is in North Melbourne, which is on Saturday, the 6th of April. And look, they've already got food there. So this
Mm,
little market day, Kasama Festival, is about celebrating Filipino craft culture that is not food, because we are aiming to target our white Australian brothers and sisters. So there's been
mm,
so many times here in Sydney at Pascal Festival, Blacktown, 120,000 people, or the one in Sydney, where our Aussie friends would come up and they go, "Where's the clothes? I really like your shirt. Where did you get that from?" Or,
Right.
"Where do I find jewelry?" Or, I want to get, like, one of those rattan things for my house. And so this is what this market is about:
Mm,
Filipino craft that isn't food.
mm.
right.
Right. And so we're looking for partners. And I asked Jen and Audie if it's possible to help us to curate some vendors or partners that we would like to showcase this in North Melbourne, so a very Aussie suburb, on Saturday, the 6th of April. And it's that market. It's that, when I lived in Melbourne, I lived in Rose Street in the McRobertson's building, just off the Rose Street markets. It's that kind of a crowd.
Mm,
So I love my Filipino community. I love my Filipino food. But for us to grow
Yeah,
and to get more awareness within the broader Australian community, we need to have things that are more appealing to the broader,
correct.
wider Australian community. So an open invitation to, speak to Jen as Audie, and see if it's something that you're up for. Speaking with these guys, I've been with them for the last couple of weeks, because I've been in Melbourne in the last couple of weeks. It would be great to have, um, maybe they said that what's really successful is clothes, jewelry, things for the house,
mhm.
um, things that are like, candles. I know here Mrs. Ube Cakes in Sydney does ube candles. That would probably
Ooh.
go like that. And they're saying so around usually the 50 to $100 mark or below is probably a good range. So that gives you an idea of the consumer that you're getting for. So, I think that's really exciting for us to be hosting an event. It's 100% happening. Speak to Jen. I think it'll be cool. I'd love to meet some of the vendors at Pinoy Entrepreneurs, and see if they'd be up for it as well. Something a little bit different. and we'll obviously have a drink over there. Look, part of the thing about Easy Street is they already have fixed restaurants. So just to give more background, with respect to the existing food vendors, we don't want to clash with them.
Yeah.
So that's why we're just focusing on Filipino craft. Or if you have food product, if it's packaged, actually that's doable. So if it's something that can take away, but not necessarily something that you would cook, that would be cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. We'll keep
You have
everyone's.
any wine, Jen?
Yeah, and invite them as well, Siggy, to the expo to
Yep,
be
to the
with
expo.
us.
I'm looking forward to going to Nari Warren, Small Business Expo, happening this Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah, this Saturday. Yeah. So I'm flying in on Friday. Hope to meet you guys there. I'm really looking forward to meeting other like-minded people. It's actually not the first, second, or third time that Jen and Audie have asked me to go. Um, they've asked me multiple times, and same with Jason from Philippine Times. It's just being able to do it in a deep and meaningful way. So I'm really rapt to be going out there and meeting other business owners. Let's make a hamper. Let's make a ube hamper. If you have a ube candle, ube cake, I'll put in the ube liqueur. We'll put in a ube lager, and we can sell it for like $100. Like, that's where my mind is going. And let's create stuff for Christmas. Let's help each other. Let's see how we can, do things like that and just celebrate our culture. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's really good when businesses collaborate. We can achieve more.
100%. Yeah. We're helping each other. So thank you for the invitation, Jen, to the expo and not giving up. And for others out there, if you have sent me a message or email or a DM, I'm not ignoring you. It's on the list. We're growing fast, so I need a social media person to manage the account. I need someone young, someone that
Yeah.
knows TikTok. So hopefully I meet someone there and really wrapped and looking forward to it. And I think, Jen, for the start of the celebration, you probably already take a photo, but we should do a toast. So I'll bring some extra drink. We can smash a bottle against the wall if the if if they're okay with it. Bonjour place, and just celebrate. And I'd be interested to see how your yearbook photo changes every year over
Mm,
time. And because I never had this many Filipino entrepreneurs to look up to at all. You just say, how do you do this? Like, how long have you been? How do you survive? How do you not punch the wall and all of these things? I think it's really cool. So thank you.
yeah. And thanks for giving us your time, Siggy. And lastly, are you able to just give a message to Pinoy entrepreneurs
Yeah. So for this Saturday,
for
Pinoy,
for the journey, for the
General,
business
general.
journey?
In general.
I think, look, there's many times when it can be dark, and perhaps that's not talked about enough. But you're never alone, right? Just shake your head, pick up the phone, speak to someone that cares, because they care about you. And my fiance always tells me, a healthy you, Siggy, is a successful us. So look after your health first, particularly as an entrepreneur. Take a break, spend time with your child, swim with them, do all of those things, because the, the business problems will still be there, and the growth of the business will still be there, but just enjoy it. And a healthy you is a successful us, and that means all of us. So just pick up the phone if you're feeling like,
I'll be calling you shortly, Siggy.
yeah, all
Yeah.
right. Give a drink.
Ace, any final message?
I felt like you're selling health insurance. Healthy.
I don't have any, actually.
We have Medicare.
Medicare. Yeah, I gave up private health insurance a while ago, so I just try and stay healthy.
Yeah.
Very good. But yeah, just like what everyone said, thank you. I think we've learned a lot in the last past hour and so. Your product is very unique. We don't Filipinos don't drink wines much, so now is the time for you to educate a lot of us and collaborate with more businesses. So yeah, more power to you. Like more success to you. I think you already have a vision of your product and it's going global. So very good.
100%. Yeah. So we're in Philippines this year, and then Singapore, and then the USA. So stay tuned, and
Nice.
always invite me back on the show. I never forget where I come from, and just for people to know, look, my family came here in the 80s. I
Yep.
grew up in Blacktown. I went to a school in Mount Druitt, which for you Melbournians doesn't mean much, but it's
Bit
let's
fun.
just say it's the lowest
It's rough.
postcode that from a stigma perspective. And I have no shame what school I went to, what suburb I went to, because that's where I lived, that's where Filipinos lived, that's where most of us are. And I haven't done bad for myself, and it defines me. And so you can do exactly what I'm doing. You just got to believe. You just got to believe and surround yourself with people like Az and Jen and Audie to guide you. So yeah,
Thank
thanks
you so
guys.
much,
Very
Siggy. Thank
inspiring.
you so much for your time. I'll see you on Saturday.
Thank you, Siggy.
We'll drink more.
All the best. See you soon.
We'll drink
Bring on for a toast.